I sat in the glass meeting room when it happened. Connor Blake, my son-in-law, leaned back in my chair like it already belonged to him. The table was filled with investors in dark suits, and my daughter Amanda sat at his side. Connor smiled and said the words like a joke. "Helen is too old to work. We just need her signature." The room went quiet except for small laughs. My ears rang. I felt heat crawl up my neck. I had built this company. Every brick, every client, every risk had my name on it. My own daughter did not say a word. She stared at her phone, letting the insults stay in the air. Connor slid the contract toward me as if I were some stamp they rented. "Just sign, Helen. We'll handle the real work." My hand wrapped around the pen, but not from weakness. Rage held it. I clicked it closed instead. Chairs scraped. Someone coughed. Connor looked confused for the first time. I stood without a word and walked out, taking my silence, my dignity, and the one thing they needed more than anything. My signature. At home the house felt too big, like all the years inside it were watching me. I sat at my kitchen table and let myself feel it. The shame. The disrespect. The loneliness of being called old like it meant useless. I had held this family when they were small, sick, scared, learning. Now I was something to be pushed aside. My chest hurt, but I did not cry. Crying would give Connor's words power they did not deserve. I remembered my late husband and the day we started our company from the garage. He always said age was not a weakness, only proof we had walked far. I went to my closet, moved a box of winter coats, and pulled out a metal fireproof safe. Inside were our original partnership papers. I had not opened them in years. I carried them to the table and laid them out flat. If they thought I was finished, they were wrong. I was hurt, but I was not broken. I turned on the lamp and started reading line by line, very slowly and very carefully. The ink was faded, but my name was still bold. I traced it with my finger and felt my strength return a little at a time. Then I saw it. A clause buried near the end. A special ownership rule that returned full control to the founding partner in extraordinary risk events. That founding partner was me. I read it again to be certain. Connor had no idea it existed. He thought I was only an old woman with a pen. In truth, I held the key to everything he wanted. Power felt strange after so much pain, but it did not make me cruel. It made me focused. I locked the papers back in the safe and sat in the dark kitchen with only the clock ticking. Connor needed this contract signed within days. He had already promised things I had not agreed to. He had told the world I was finished. I whispered, "Not yet," to the empty room and knew that tomorrow would not be quiet. The next morning, I met Amanda in a small coffee shop near the office. She held her cup with both hands and would not look at me. I asked her if she knew Connor would call me too old in front of investors. She nodded. That small nod hurt worse than the words. She said he thought it was time for fresh leadership and time for me to rest. Resting is my decision, not his. I asked if she believed that I was too old to work. She said nothing. Silence is still an answer. I told her what he did was cruel, and she said, "He's under pressure." I said pressure reveals character. She begged me not to cause trouble. I told her trouble already existed, and it wasn't mine. When I stood to leave, she grabbed my hand for a moment like a child again, then let go. I walked out shaking, but not from age. From betrayal. That was the moment I knew love and boundaries could exist together, and I would need both. That afternoon I went back to the office without warning. I stayed in the hallway a while just watching. Connor barked orders, cut off workers mid-sentence, bragged loudly on calls. People lowered their eyes when he passed. That never happened with me. Fear had moved into my building. In a side office the shredder whined. Two assistants left quickly, whispering. I walked in and looked in the bin. Strips of paper curled like snakes. Something inside me said, take them. I poured the strips into a bag and carried them home. That night my dining table became a puzzle board. It took hours to match the lines, but I kept going. Every piece mattered. When the last strip fit, I stared at the page. It showed false totals and my initials written in ink that was not mine. He had used my name. My hands shook now for real, not from age but from shock. Connor had crossed from rude to dangerous. I folded the papers and knew I needed help. The next morning I carried the reconstructed pages in a large envelope to see Arthur Lane, my old friend and retired attorney. His office smelled like paper and coffee, the same as always. He adjusted his glasses and read every line, slow and careful. He did not speak at first, and that silence told me enough. Finally he looked up and said, Helen, this is forgery. The word made my stomach twist. Hearing it out loud turned fear into cold reality. He asked if I wanted to press charges. I thought about Amanda and shook my head. He nodded with understanding, then said quietly, you do not have to destroy him to stop him. That sentence stayed with me. Arthur explained my rights under the original contract. The power I still had was real and strong, not symbolic. He told me to keep records, to stay calm and unemotional, and to choose my timing well. On the way home I felt two things at once, grief for my family and steel in my spine. Connor thought calling me too old would erase me. Instead, he woke me up. I placed the forged document in my safe beside the originals and locked it shut. I went to work the next day with a plan, not anger. I listened more than I spoke. I met longtime staff in small groups, asking simple questions and letting silence fill the spaces. People began to talk. They said Connor changed payment terms without notice, promised bonuses then delayed them, and blamed mistakes on others. His charm in meetings was a mask that slipped once doors closed. A project manager named Tara asked if we could talk alone. We sat in a quiet storage room among old blueprints. She whispered that she had saved copies of emails Connor had asked to be deleted. She said she kept them because something felt wrong. My heart swelled with gratitude and sadness at the same time. She was the kind of employee businesses are built on, quiet and loyal and strong. I told her to send them to me. That night I read those emails slowly. Connor had told investors I was confused, blocking growth, and nearly retired. He had built a story where I was the problem to be removed. Each word hurt, but it also brought clarity. Truth gives direction. I saved every file and felt the story changing. Later that week, Connor hosted an investor dinner at a tall glass restaurant downtown. He did not invite me. I went anyway. When I walked in, forks paused in midair. Connor's smile froze like a cracked mask. He introduced me as our former leader, trying to control the room. I simply sat down. I watched him speak. Every sentence painted him as the hero of our company's growth. My name barely appeared except as a footnote. But the investors' eyes kept drifting back to me. When dessert menus arrived, I asked for a private room. Connor tried to interfere, but they agreed to hear me. In the side room, I placed the original contract, the clause, and the forged papers on the table. I did not cry or shout. I spoke in plain words that could not be twisted. When I finished, the room was silent. One investor slowly said, "We didn't know." I nodded. I said I wanted the company safe and honest again. They agreed to support me if I stepped forward. Walking out of that room, I realized the insult that had crushed me had now become my turning point. The next day Connor found out about the meeting. He stormed into my office without knocking. His voice was sharp and loud so everyone outside could hear. He accused me of trying to steal his future. I told him calmly that you cannot steal what was never yours. Rage filled his face. He said it was time for the old to make space for the new. I said the new must still be honest. He hated calm more than anger because he could not fight it. He swore he would build his own company and take our staff. I let him speak. When he finally left, slamming the door, the frame shook, but I did not. That afternoon I called an emergency board meeting. Chairs filled. Documents spread. Lawyers attended. I laid out every fact, every email, every forged initial. Some board members looked shocked. Others looked guilty for believing him. We scheduled a formal vote to transfer control back to me under the founding clause. When Connor heard that, he laughed too loudly and said, "You won't win." But for the first time, his laugh sounded hollow. That night, after word of the coming vote spread, Amanda came to my house. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. She stood in the doorway before speaking, like she was asking permission to still be part of my life. I let her in. She sat at the same table where we had done her school projects years ago. Finally, she whispered the truth. Connor had pressured her to push me to sign. He had promised her an easy life if I stepped down quietly. She said she agreed at first because she thought it was just business. Then tears came. She said she had not known he forged my name or hid debts. Hearing her broke me and healed me at the same time. I told her I loved her, but love does not erase consequences. She nodded, crying harder. She asked if I was going to destroy him. I said I was going to protect the company and myself. That was different. When she left, the house felt less empty than before, not healed but moving toward it. I stayed up writing my final statement for the vote, choosing every word with steady care. The boardroom was filled before sunrise the next morning. The blinds were half open, letting in thin lines of light across the table. Connor walked in late, loud on purpose, pretending nothing worried him. I could see his confidence was a costume now, not a truth. The lawyers read the founding clause out loud. My name, founding partner, carried a new weight. Then they displayed the forged documents. You could hear paper move but not people breathe. Connor tried to laugh it away, calling it a mistake, but no one smiled. When the vote began, he reached for proxy votes he had gathered, but legal counsel said those votes were tied to the forgery and invalid. The room shifted. His face strained, and the anger returned like a storm. The vote ended. Control came back to me. I did not cheer. I simply nodded. Connor shouted that he would ruin the contract before I ever signed it. He stormed out, but this time no one followed him. After the meeting, our head of operations ran in. A core digital file had vanished from the server overnight. It was the main contract bid. Everyone looked at me. Instead of panic, I felt clarity. We would solve this too. The office buzzed with worry like a hive that had been hit. The missing bid file was everything we had worked toward for months. Without it, the contract would fall apart and Connor would get exactly what he wanted. I called an emergency staff meeting. Instead of shouting, I spoke slowly and clearly, telling everyone the truth. Faces softened, fear turning into focus. Then Noah Reed, our quiet IT intern, raised his hand. His voice was unsure at first, but steady. He said that weeks earlier he had created secure backups because he liked extra safety. He smiled nervously, like he expected to be scolded. I told him he had probably saved the company. He went to work right away. After 2 hours of typing and checking logs, the lost bit appeared back on the screen like it had never gone missing. A wave of relief moved through the room. When I checked the access record, it showed Connor's login the night before. I felt sadness instead of surprise. This was the path he had chosen. I thanked Noah in front of everyone. He turned red but smiled. Quiet people often hold the strongest pillars of a company. When Noah restored the file, he uncovered more than we expected. Hidden inside the backup were transfer records of client information being copied to an outside drive. Names, contracts, proposals. Connor had been preparing to start a rival firm powered by what we built. Seeing the proof hurt more than the insult in the meeting room. Betrayal has sharp edges when it comes from family. I printed the documents and sat alone with them for a while before acting. Then I called Connor and told him to meet me in a small side conference room. He came ready to argue, his voice already raised, but stopped when he saw the papers laid out. He read them. His face changed. Something in his eyes finally broke. I told him I did not call him here to yell. I told him his choices had consequences. My voice did not shake. That seemed to shake him more than anger would have. I said the company would be protected, and I would be protected. He asked what would happen next. I said that depended on him. I laid out 2 choices for him. The first was clean, resign quietly, seek counseling, accept a modest severance, and leave the company completely. The second was legal action with full charges. He stared at the wall for a long time. For once, he had nothing clever to say. Finally he whispered, "Why are you not destroying me?" I answered honestly. Destroying him would also destroy Amanda, and I would not choose more pain if I could stop it. Revenge, to me, was not about harm. It was about standing back up and making wrong things right. He nodded, eyes wet but refusing to cry. He signed his resignation with a shaking hand. Then he took another sheet of paper and wrote a short note. He folded it and placed it by my hand, saying it was for me to read later. He stood, looked around the room one last time, and walked out slowly, like the weight of his choices had finally become real. The contract signing took place the next week. The conference room was the same one where I had been called too old to work. But the feeling was different now. I sat at the head of the table again, not to prove anything, just because it was rightfully mine. The investors watched with respect this time, not impatience. I read the agreement carefully from start to finish. Then I signed it with a steady hand. People clapped, not loudly, but warmly. It felt like a circle closing. Afterward, one of the lawyers noticed the folded note beside me. He said it should be added to the record because it related to leadership. I hesitated, then opened it. Connor's handwriting filled the page. In the note, he admitted everything, the forgery, the stolen data, the lies. He said he had been wrong about age, wrong about me, wrong about what power meant. Reading it hurt and healed at the same time. His words protected the company if issues came up later. When I looked up, Amanda was standing in the doorway, tears in her eyes. She said she wanted to earn my trust back, not just ask for it. I nodded. The work of healing had finally begun. Amanda and I talked that evening in my living room, the same place where she once did schoolwork on the floor with crayons. She sat very still, like she was afraid to move the wrong way. She told me she had ignored small signs for a long time because she wanted to believe the life Connor promised her. I listened without interrupting. She said she now understood that pretending not to see wrong things does not make them less wrong. I told her that trust is rebuilt one act at a time, not with one apology. She nodded and accepted that without argument, which told me she had changed. Over the next few days she came to the office not as the boss's daughter, but as an ordinary employee, asking where she could help. Some staff looked unsure at first, but then they saw her doing the real work. At night, I sat alone in my office after everyone left, looking at the city lights. I thought about the words "too old to work." I realized they had stopped hurting. They had become proof that I was still here, still standing, still strong. I did not feel old. I felt experienced and awake. In the weeks that followed, we repaired what could be repaired and replaced what could not. We set new rules that protected workers, required open records and banned age jokes or insults of any kind. I wanted no one else to feel what I had felt in that meeting room. Connor stayed away, just as the agreement said. but his shadow still lingered in conversations, in small worries people did not voice. I addressed it openly in a company-wide meeting. I told them exactly what had happened and exactly what had changed. There were no secrets left to rot in dark corners. When I finished, people clapped softly, not because it was a show, but because they felt safe again. After the meeting, Noah came up to me and said he had been offered a scholarship to study advanced computer systems. He said he would not have applied if I hadn't believed in him. His smile was shy and proud at the same time. I told him the company would support him fully. As he walked away, I thought again about how leadership is not loud voices. Leadership is choosing people and truth over ego. One afternoon, while sorting files in my office, our receptionist brought me a plain envelope with my name written carefully across the front. My heart knew who it was from before I opened it. I sat down and unfolded the paper. It was from Connor. He wrote that he had begun counseling and was facing parts of himself he had ignored for years. He said he replayed the moment he called me too old to work and could finally see how cruel it was, how it cut not only my pride but my history. He did not ask for forgiveness. He said he was still trying to earn it from himself first. That honesty surprised me more than anything he had done before. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the weight of all the months settle. I did not feel victory. I felt release. I placed the letter inside the metal box with the founding papers and his resignation. That box now held both the start of our company and the truth that almost broke it. It felt like the right place for both. A new challenge rose soon after. News spread that one of our biggest clients was thinking about ending their contract because they feared old leadership problems. The worry in the building was almost physical. Instead of sending emails or lawyers, I went myself. I sat across the table from the client team and told them the full truth again, from the insult at the start to the changes now in place. I did not hide my hurt because it was part of the truth. When I finished, the room stayed quiet for a long while. Then the lead representative leaned forward and said they would stay, not because everything was perfect, but because they trusted the direction we were going in. My chest felt lighter than it had in months. On the drive back, I thought of the company as something living that needed care, not control. When I walked into the office, people were waiting in the lobby for news. I smiled and told them we were safe. Relief spread through faces like sunlight through clouds. That moment felt like healing becoming real. The company settled into a new rhythm after that. Work felt honest again. People spoke openly and argued fairly without fear. We created a mentorship program pairing younger staff with older ones, not because one group was better than the other, but because both had something the other needed. Watching them work together filled me with quiet pride. One evening I stayed late and walked through the quiet halls. I paused at the glass meeting room where everything had begun. I could almost see my past self sitting there, holding a pen and feeling small. I wished I could tell her what I knew now, that being called too old would not be her ending, it would be her beginning again. As I turned off the lights and headed toward the elevator, my phone buzzed. It was Amanda, asking if I wanted to meet for dinner. I said yes without hesitation. Life was not perfect, but it was honest now, and that was more than enough. I stepped into the elevator feeling calm, steady, and rooted in who I was. Dinner with Amanda felt different that night. We met at a small place near the lake, one we had not visited since she was in college. She spoke more honestly than I had heard in years. She said she had been living inside other people's plans instead of her own. She said she wanted to learn the business from the ground up, not through shortcuts or titles. I told her I supported that, but reminded her that trust was rebuilt over time. She agreed and did not ask me to rush it. In the following weeks she came in early, stayed late, listened more than she talked, and asked questions that showed real curiosity. Workers began to respect her for who she was, not who she was married to. That mattered more than she knew. One afternoon as we were reviewing reports together, she paused and said, "Thank you for not quitting when he tried to erase you." I did not answer right away. I realized then that my staying had not only saved the company. It had given my daughter an example of standing firm without bitterness. As we finished our work, I felt a quiet peace settle between us, not loud or dramatic, but real. Spring came, and with it, new projects. The lobby filled again with clients, clipboards, ideas, and normal noise. But one afternoon the receptionist told me there was a visitor waiting downstairs. My heart knew before my mind did. Connor stood near the glass doors, thinner, hair a little grayer, eyes different. There was no swagger, no sharp smile, only a steady calm. He asked if we could talk for a few minutes. We sat on a bench outside, away from others. He did not try to justify anything. He simply said he was sorry, clearly and directly, not as performance but as truth. He said he was working, studying, and trying to repair the parts of himself that had believed cruelty was strength. I listened. I told him I accepted his apology, but that trust takes time and is built by actions, not promises. He said he understood. When he stood to leave, he thanked me for choosing firmness instead of hatred. After he walked away, I sat for a moment longer, letting the cool air clear my thoughts. Life does not always give perfect endings, but it does give honest ones, and that was enough for me. The next major task was rebuilding our reputation beyond our walls. We held an open house for clients, partners, and families of employees. People walked through the building, seeing displays of finished work and teams presenting new ideas. I watched older workers teaching younger ones how to solve problems that did not appear in textbooks. I watched younger workers showing new technology to people who had built with their hands for decades. The mix felt right. During the event, one of the investors from that painful meeting approached me privately. He said, "I judged you too quickly before. I see now what real leadership looks like." His words touched something deep inside me that I did not know was still sore. Later that evening, after everyone had gone, I walked into the now quiet meeting room and sat in the same chair where Connor once said I was too old. I placed my hands on the table and took a long breath. The room did not hold humiliation anymore. It held proof that dignity can survive attack. It held proof that experience is not a weakness but a foundation. Weeks later, another letter arrived, this time addressed to both Amanda and me. It was from Connor again. He wrote that he had found a small job in another city, not in leadership, but in learning, and that starting over had humbled him in ways he needed. He said he did not expect anything from us, only wanted to thank us for giving him the chance to change instead of crushing him completely. Amanda read the letter slowly and then sat beside me without speaking. We did not need many words. Growth is often quiet. That evening we hosted a mentorship session in the office. Workers shared stories of failure and recovery instead of only success. I told my own story too, not as a speech, but as a lesson, that sometimes the hardest battle is not against others, but against the voice that tells you to disappear. As we wrapped up the session, I looked around the room at people of every age working together. The company was no longer just a business. It was a place where people could fall, stand again, and keep going. On the anniversary of our company's founding, I arrived early and unlocked the front doors myself, just like I used to do years ago. Sunlight filled the lobby. I stood there alone for a moment, remembering everything. The garage where we started. The day I was told I was too old to work. The meetings, the fear, the strength I did not know I still had. I walked to my office and opened the metal box one more time. Inside were the founding papers, the forged documents, Connor's confession, and his final letter. They told the whole story, from creation, to near collapse, to renewal. I closed the box gently and placed it back on the shelf. When people began arriving, laughter and conversation filled the halls. Work waited, and I was ready for it. I was not retired, erased, or finished. I was experienced, steady, and present. My son-in-law once tried to make me small with one sentence. Instead, I became larger inside myself. I went to the glass meeting room, picked up my notebook, and smiled. I was still working, still leading, and still writing my own ending.